Take my hand. I'll lead you into death. By a Whisper in the Shadows, on AO3. Episode 27. Chapter 15. Midoriya really freaked Yuga out. One of Reaper's victims had been found near his old middle school. It was a shopkeeper that Yuga had known well. Though he was never found of the man, he always gave him the creeps. Still, he had known about Reaper long before the assassin was introduced to the class. He was always one of Yuga's biggest fears. Something like that stopped him from going out so late at night. And now, he was living with them. Yuga really didn't try not to be afraid of Midoriya. He tried to distance both names from each other, but fear isn't something so easily overcome. He couldn't help but want to avoid the boy. He was still a hero, though, and seeing someone in pain never sat well. It simply wasn't sparkly. He watched Midoriya closely since he had arrived, even if it had been from a distance. He came from the hospital, they knew that much, so when he saw the boy limping, he didn't think too much of it. The longer he stayed with him, however, the worse it seemed to get. When Yuga saw him standing anywhere only on one foot, the other hovering just barely off the ground so it wouldn't be noticed, he knew he had to say something. "Aizawa-sensei?" he asked tentatively. Most of the class were already in their seats, only waiting for a couple of stragglers. "Yes, Oyama," he grumbled, not even glancing up from his work. I'm concerned about Midoriya." At this, his teacher looked up, his full attention on the student. Yuga cleared his throat, trying to get his thoughts in order. "It's just, since he's came here, I've noticed him limping, and I thought it was just an injury from wherever he was before, but I think it's gotten worse, sir. And I've noticed how he tries to not put any weight on it at all. I thought I should let you know." He trailed off slightly as his teacher continued to stare at him. Then the man looked away, eyes focusing on something behind them. "Izuku," he called out. "Come here for a minute." Yuga decided he should leave a little privacy for the conversation, moving back to his seat. Both Midoriya and Bakugou came over, Bakugou watching Yuga carefully. As Yuga suspected, Midoriya was limping, but doing an excellent job at hiding it. He tried turning out the conversation, but noticed little things like Aizawa asking if his leg was okay, or trying to get him to put his full weight down. Eventually, the whole class' attention was brought to the front room by Bakugou yelling, "Fuck Izuku!" Izuku flinched back, staring at the ground, murmuring a quiet apology. A few hisses went around the room, Yuga himself quite shocked at the sight of the boy's leg. They all knew he had a monitor on him. The commission had to keep track of him somehow. Whoever had put it on him, however, had to be fired. It was digging so harshly into his skin. The outside was rubbed raw, dried blood sticking to his leg. Yuga was glad he mentioned Midoriya's limping now. He probably never had told anyone. How no one had noticed yet was beyond him. But he was supposed to, sometimes, when you're not expecting. It's hard to see. Midoriya seemed and struck him as the type to be very good at hiding things anyways. The three swiftly left the class, Aizawa ordering Ida to take roll. 5 minutes later, Midnight was coming in to supervise, telling them they had a study period. Yuga find concentration on anything difficult, his thoughts stammering with the image of a green-haired boy. He was still lost in his head later that evening when Bakugou called out to him. "Oi, Sparkles!" Yuga stopped by the elevator, hand hovering over the button. "Yes, Bakugou?" he asked curiously. He wasn't exactly sure how this conversation would go. Bakugou stared at him for a moment, before sighing and running a hand through his hair. "Look, I just wanted to say thanks about earlier. I don't know how I didn't notice it, and that really fucking pissed me off. And I know Izuku's being here is hard for a lot of people, so yeah. Thanks, Oyama." Yuga's eyes widened comedically. You're welcome. It wasn't really a problem, but, I wasn't aware you knew my name." Bakugou scoffed before walking away. "I know everyone's fucking names," he called back. "Doesn't mean I'm gonna fucking use them." Yuga smiled, stepping into the elevator. If anything, he was glad the two boys had each other. "Genius! Aha! Genius! Hatsume crackled madly. We are gonna make so many amazing babies together when I get inside your little head. She was completely in Midoriya's face, who had to be dragged away by Bakugou, the boy grumbling incoherently to himself, scoffing at the pink-haired student. Hatsume always had an energy most were not prepared for, but Toro found her delightful, even if she didn't understand half of what she said. Now, all she had to do was agree with her. Midoriya really was a genius. He had been staring at her all day, in the dorms, the classrooms, and especially during training. Which was weird, and impressive considering she was completely invisible. Aizawa groaned next to them. Maybe the rest of us are just morons. Then he completely surprised Toru, turning and bowing to her. On behalf of UA, I sincerely apologize for not coming up with something like this sooner. A DNA-based suit to turn invisible makes so much more sense. Toru waved her hands in front of her, reassuring it wasn't his fault. She had never thought of it either. Perhaps the idea itself is a simple one, but Midoriya's nanotech is what really makes this impressive. Damn, I am so glad I've got my hands on you. Natsume began crackling wildly, patting off 100 of theories and new babies. Poor Midoriya just stared at her, seemingly in shock. Toru couldn't help but giggle to herself, a warm feeling in her chest, as she watched the boy. She had never felt more seen. Momo was simply enjoying some tea in the company of Ida, Uraraka, and Koda. This year had really been so hectic. She was glad the four of them had some moment of peace. She only wished to encourage more of her classmates to enjoy the delicacy of good tea. They had a small conversation going, but for the most part it was quiet. Then Midoriya and Bakugou were suddenly in front of them, Bakugou looking just as confused as Momo felt. Midoriya stared at her for a minute, not saying a word. She glanced at the others, all wearing matching confused expressions. Is everything okay, Midoriya? She asked gently. He said nothing, continuing to watch her closely. Then he turned to Bakugou, revealing a backpack. Bakugou protested loudly at being manhandled, but they all had noticed how he didn't mind it with Midoriya. How often it happened. Midoriya pulled out a number of books and placed them in a pile in front of Momo. With that, his mission seemed complete, turning and dragging Bakugou away with him. What? Uraraka questioned, staring at the pile of books. Momo had a quick scan of the titles, eyebrows raising in surprise. The books all contained detailed descriptions of different types of weapons and capture items. Inside one, there was a small note. You are very, very cool, but you need more. Izuku. She couldn't help the smile that spread wide on her face, brushing her fingers over the note. I think Midoriya wants me to study. Denki was really happy with how close him and Hitoshi had gotten. They weren't dating yet, but they did keep dancing around each other. Neither of them seemed to mind, and through it all, they genuinely had become really good friends. Which is why Denki hated seeing Hitoshi so bent up and frustrated. The boy looked more exhausted than usual, and that was saying something. Denki knew this whole Midoriya thing was really weighing on him, especially. The boy was being fostered by his parents, interacting constantly with his little sister, and had previously targeted one of his best friends. Everyone was still shocked about how close Hitoshi and Bakugou had gotten, considering when they first met. All they did was, well, fight. Denki was just glad they could get along now. So Denki was doing his best to be there for the boy, trying to distract him with different activities. He even went as far as actually participating in studying and homework just to get Hitoshi's mind off of everything. Having Midoriya stay with them had been odd, but Denki didn't pay too much attention to him. If he was being honest, the whole assassin thing freaked him out a lot, especially since he still had horrible dreams about the body they found. But he was finding it pretty easy to separate Midoriya from Reaper. Being with Hitoshi a lot of those past weeks also meant he didn't see Midoriya that much. He couldn't be sure which boy was avoiding who, but it was probably a bit of both, which was why he was shocked to see Midoriya appear in front of them while they were going over some English with Hitoshi, a subject he was proud to say he had a talent for. Bakugou flopped himself into the chair next to them, all three of them now looking up at Midoriya. He stared at Hitoshi, not saying anything, before his eyes flickered over to Bakugou. The blonde raised an eyebrow, then sighed. He stood and whispered something to the young boy's ear, giving his hand a small squeeze. Sitting back down, he nodded to Midoriya, smiling in a soft way Denki had never seen before. Midoriya croaked, before stopping to clear his throat. I'm sorry. I am bad at, talking, but I feel like I need to, so, sorry. He paused, looking at Bakugou, who waved his hands for Midoriya to continue. Hitoshi looked completely godsmacked. I'm not afraid of you. Your quirk, brainwashing, I actually think it's really cool and interesting. But I don't have a lot of good memories. I knew someone who had a quirk like yours. He disappeared. I don't know, but it's not you, and I know you're good. Because you're a hero, like Kachan. And Kachan's good. So, sorry. Oh, and thank you for not hating me too much and letting me stay with your family. He looked to Bakugou again, who was still smiling softly. Then he stood up and began to pull the boy away. Good job, he murmured. Both Denki and Hitoshi sat in shock. They were pretty sure no one in their class, bar Bakugou maybe, had heard Midoriya talk so much. He really rambled once he got going. Hitoshi shook his head, standing as well. Midoriya, he called. The two other boys stopped, turning back to him. Hitoshi held out a pinky finger. Denki's eyes widened at the gesture. Midoriya didn't have much of a reaction, though he never really did. There was definitely expression on his face Denki hadn't seen yet, however, as he cautiously returned, wrapping his pinky around Hitoshi's. See you later. I'll see you later, Midoriya mumbled, before scurrying back to Bakugou's side. Denki was sure he saw a small smile on his face. The thought had him smiling himself, as he and Hitoshi silently went back to work. Later they would talk about it, but Denki knew his moments. He was glad things were starting to look up for them. It had been 2 weeks since they got Izuku into the dorms, and Katsuki was finally getting to cut the boy's hair. Almost his whole class had gotten used to Izuku being there. There were still some instances where they startled them, but for the most part, everyone was chill. They were all relaxing for Friday afternoon in the common area, sprawled out, each doing different activities. Izuku was busy scribbling in his notebook to notice much else. A few were watching with amusement, some with curiosity. Hobo-sensei was sleeping on the couch next to them, but Katsuki knew it was a false, and their teacher knew exactly what was happening at all times. Pinky was next to Katsuki, floating on the other side, both prating on and on about different hair products and washing techniques for different types of hairs. Katsuki didn't care. Izuku's hair was always nice, if a bit wild. He just needed it to be fucking cut. No! Pinky suddenly squealed. Oh my god, Blasty, move, move. We have to give him an undercut. Katsuki didn't even have a second to register what she was saying before he was being floated away, released on the couch next to their teacher. He sat in shock as a couple more of the girls surrounded Izuku, messing with his hair. Izuku only glanced up once, and seeing that Katsuki was still in his vision, and safe, he returned his full attention to his notebook. Don't sulk. You'll get him back soon, Aizawa grumbled, opening one eye. I'm not fucking skulking. Katsuki grumbled right back, sinking further into his couch. He let himself relax as he watched the girls dotting at Izuku, giggling as they played with his hair. He didn't care what they did to him too much, as long as they fucking cut it. Aizawa's phone rang, startling him slightly. Hizashi? He asked tiredly, before bolting upright in his seat. What? He hissed. Katsuki sat to full attention, along with most of his classmates, who were in earshot. A glance at Izuku showed him he was confused, but alert, and coiled tight. Is she okay? Eri, is she okay? That had everyone's attention. Aizawa stood up and moved to the door. It was thrown open before he reached it. All Might and Midnight running in. Show, Channel 5. Midnight yelled. Ojiro, who had been the closest to the television at the time, scrambled to turn the television on. It's at the Small Hero Museum downtown. They're not letting anyone through, not even heroes. say they have enough on the scene already, which is just bullshit. Oh my! For a while, it was just the broadcasters describing the scene. The teachers were frantically discussing behind them. Something about Yamada being there already, but the police not letting him through. Midnight and All Might were also feebly trying to let Aizawa run out. It'll be of no use. They won't let you through, I don't care what they will or won't let me do. That is my damn daughter. Let them try and stop me. He growled, trying to shove past them again. All Might put a hand on Aizawa's shoulder. Nezu is already contacting people. We won't be of any help, especially if you're in this panic state. Oh, Kami! Hagakure gasped at the channel, began showing footage. The small museum was for local heroes at UA, alumni. It was a nice place. They had all gone before. They knew Eri was going on tour there today, because she had been talking non-stop about it. On the roof of the building was a cluster of small bodies, 2 teachers trying to keep them calm. It was on the roof that sent ice into Katsuki's heart. A Nomu. It was huge, moving towards the kids while heroes desperately tried to fend it off. Katsuki felt his palms grow hot as he watched the scene. He saw Eri's hair shining like a beacon. He needed to get her. Then, the building on the screen shook. The room around him was in chaos as they watched another Nomu land on the side of the museum and began to climb. People were shouting, arguing about leaving. Aizawa was sounding ready to murder the ex-number-1 hero. Bakugou couldn't take his eyes off of the screen. It zoomed in on the kids' faces, on how scared they looked. He felt frozen. Until he didn't. Whipping around, he marched towards the door, ready to shove his teachers and classmates out of the way. Aizawa's scarf wrapped around him. He wasn't letting any of the students go. He continued to yell at All Might, Midnight joining in. Katsuki felt his own rage boiling over. He needed to get Eri. All Might was doing his best to calm everyone, agreeing with them, but it wasn't in his control. They could see the police barricade moving more heroes, which made zero fucking sense. In his panic, Katsuki forced his attention to Izuku to make sure he was okay in this chaos. When his eyes landed on the couch, his breath caught. All those who weren't standing and arguing with their teacher had gathered around the couches, sitting and standing in shock. All but Izuku. Aizawa, he gasped, voice laced with desperation. Aizawa instantly focused his attention on Katsuki, shaking at his tone. Izuku was all he could manage. Aizawa turned quickly, his own eye widening. Izuku was gone. Dad? Shinsou's voice sounded from next to the television. Is that... There, on the screen, was an unmistakable streak of green. He sprinted past the children, sprinted straight towards the towering monsters, the monsters who had just flung a hero on the side of the building. Katsuki watched in horror as Izuku ran straight at the Nomu, with nothing but a pipe in his hands. Yep, I knew it was way too fucking good to be true. There was... Oh my god. Okay, so we got... By the way, I hit 5K. When did that happen? I could have sworn I was nowhere near 5K. Lately, I have not been checking how much, what's it called? I've tried to get into the habit of not checking how many subscribers I've had. You know, climbing up to 1,000 was really good, but now getting to these numbers, I'm starting to realize that if I'm studying my analytics a little too closely, I start to go insane. While in the beginning I was studying my analytics and trying to figure out how to grow and stuff like that, for now I'm taking a break from looking at my analytics and stuff. Occasionally I see the typical analytics and whatever, and I make sure that I stay in the growing margin, for my views and my watch time. Those are the two that I mainly want to focus on. Specifically watch time, I want to get your guys' retention as much as possible. But, when did you all get here? Dude, I remember like months ago I hit 1,000. Whoa, what are you guys doing here? When did y'all get here? What? When did y'all get here? Last I checked, you guys, what? When? You gotta be shitting me. Like, when did y'all get here? How did this happen? Y'all? Where you been? Y'all? Y'all. Okay. Well, this next one, scares me, and it should scare you, because what the fuck? I kind of knew the second that they were targeting Eri. I thought it was gonna be like a moment where Izuku went back to how he was with his training, but in the sense of, instead of trying to kill, it's more of like protect and whatever. Mind you, keep in mind, Izuku has never gotten comfort ever in his life, right? And he has a set of people that he will protect with his life. Because when you have been taken, like, when someone has taken so much of your comfort, the little comfort you do get, you hold on like it's for dear life. And it does not matter if the same comfort you are getting and the same person who is giving you comfort that you are holding on to dear life is the same person who is also inflicting the knife. It does not matter that the same person who is holding your cheek and hugging you is also the person who has a knife stuck to your stomach, who stabbed you. It does not matter in your brain that while this person is stabbing you, they're also holding you. Because at the least, they are holding you, and that is what you're focused on, right? But in Izuku's case, he's finally left that type of, environment, and he is in this new environment where people are giving him, human interaction. They're giving him the time of day. They're giving him everything he needs. They're giving him comfort and much fucking more. So yes, as I said before, one who has been deprived of comfort will do anything and everything to keep that comfort that is dear to them close. If it means murder, the mind will justify it. If it means having to go through a horrible person manipulating and hitting you and hurting you just to seek that small bit of comfort because you do not have it anywhere else, then so be it. The mind will go through it and the person will go through it. Or in this case, if one of the people that is giving you comfort that you see and in your mind subconsciously see that it is someone like you, someone who has gone through hell like you will stop at anything. You will not stop at anything to make sure that person is okay. And that is what's happening here. That is what's happening with Eri and Izuku. So the second they put that on TV, I knew Izuku would be running out. The second we stopped getting Izuku's point of view, or Izuku's, talking about what Izuku was doing and stuff like that, I knew they were gonna turn and Izuku was going to be gone. And I knew it. And I think next chapter, Izuku's gonna be very badly hurt. And I also think they're gonna reprimand him, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think he's gonna get out of this scot-free. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.